This episode is brought to you by Top Notch Cattle Company, raising high-quality registered red and gray Brahman cattle. Contact Baxter Whitworth at 903-649-9155 or at bbwtopnotchcattle@gmail.com. You work the entire year, breeding your cattle, keeping your herd healthy, calving your cows out, and raising those calves. But then sale day comes. You take your cattle to the sale barn, and then the market plummets. Or you start and have your own private sale, but your cattle sell for lower than you expected. The list goes on. But how do you protect against this? Well, in this episode, you're going to learn about how diversifying incomes can help you protect your cattle operation, as well as how breeding for certain traits helps keep your cattle operation profitable just by mitigating risk. So I hope you enjoy, and I hope you learn something. Welcome to the Cattle Innovation Station podcast,
bringing you the innovative new ways of the cattle industry.
We're your hosts, Baxter Whitworth and Paul Hayes. Together, we're going to be interviewing leaders within the cattle industry.
Here on this podcast, our focus is honoring God and innovating the cattle industry. Get ready to listen, learn, and laugh as we help innovate the cattle industry.
Let's get innovating. Infinity Cattle Services, owned by Chris Shivers, is glad to be a sponsor of the Cattle Innovation Station podcast. Infinity Cattle Services, a unique, vision-driven, service-oriented company committed to developing successful revenue-producing cattle operations, is a full-service consulting and marketing firm specializing in Brahman and Brahman-influenced cattle. Contact them today to learn more about how they can assist you with locating cattle, cattle mating, sale management, marketing, communications, record keeping, data submission, and a wide array of other services. They can be reached at 713-202-1747. Again, that's 713-202-1747, or at infinitycattleservices@gmail.com. That is infinitycattleservices@gmail.com. Visit their website at infinitycattle.com or check them out on Facebook and Instagram. It's time for another episode of the Cattle Innovation Station podcast, where we keep you current on beef cattle industry events, help you innovate your herd to turn a profit, and help innovate the beef cattle industry so we can feed more people on less land. I'm your host, Baxter Whitworth, and today our guest is Mr. Colton Thigpen, and he's the owner and operator and creator of the Cattle Coach Academy, where he teaches cattle producers like yourself to be profitable. And so in this episode, we're going to be talking about how to breed cattle that's goal is to make you profitable, and also how to diversify incomes, because in the cattle industry, a lot of times we're selling all of our cattle at one time. And so we need to learn how to create income throughout the year. Mr. Thigpen, how are you today?
I'm outstanding, bud. How are you?
I'm good. Well, let's go ahead and hop into it. So we want to talk about how to breed cattle that make you a profit. And so I think there's two sides to that. The first side is breeding cattle that make you a profit by being productive and making more calves, therefore being the retaining heifer side, and also breeding cattle that are going to sell and make you a profit. For you, that's mostly steers and some heifers also. For your seed stock producer or your commercial producer, that's going to also be steers sometimes, and bulls and heifers as well. So we'll start off with the cattle that we're breeding to sell. How do you breed those cattle to make you profit from the standpoint of not wanting to put more money into those calves as you have to, and getting the most income that you can possible.
Absolutely. The first thing I would encourage is to define your operation, right? Know who you are, what you're creating, or what you want to create. Because if you don't know that, then you're kind of just rolling with the wind, right? So are you the commercial guy that's going to be selling them by the pound? Then we probably ought to have sound cattle that have good growth EPDs and are going to weigh something whenever we sell them. If you're a seed stock guy that's selling replacement heifers, then you better not be using terminal breeds, right? You better be using some functional breeds that have some femininity and some production value about them. For me, if I'm selling show steers, then I better be breeding for terminal traits and cattle that are built like modern day show steers should be built, or else if they are not successful in the ring, I'm not going to be successful selling them. So the main thing is defining your operation so that you can create that breeding plan.
Right. So you talked about defining your operation. I think that's really important. Recently, I've been putting a lot of learning into my podcast because I want to do the absolute best for our listeners I can. And I've learned and I've listened to these podcasts about podcasts that have told me, niche down your podcast and focus on what it's really about. And in case our listeners haven't figured out, it's the cow-calf producer. And so I think going the same way with a cattle operation of, am I selling high quality seed stock genetics? Am I selling show cattle? Am I selling commercial cattle that are going to go into a feedlot, and their goal in life is to feed people? And so I think finding that is very important. And what is your goal with your operation? And for me, I mean, eventually my goal is to have multiple herds that have different goals. And so I think, do you think that's still a profitable way as well, or do you need to focus on one specific thing for your cattle operation?
I would say it's very good to have different things going as long as you can handle, manage, and focus to do them all right. There's no use in doing any of them wrong or half-heartedly. As long as you can manage them properly and do them right, then spreading that out and diversifying it is awesome. And they can work together, right? So like I may not, my bread and butter isn't the commercial world, but in my show operation, I heavily utilize embryo transfer. Well, if you're going to do embryo transfer, what do you need? Recips. And what do they need to be good at? A good
Being a
commercial
cow.
cow, raising calves, being a cow, right? And not all of them are going to take an embryo, and they're going to have a natural calf sometimes. So they also need to be able to raise one that's going to weigh something, and or I can raise my own replacements for that operation as well. That will depend on the bull that I put on them. And so me knowing my operation allows me to make those good breeding decisions. So for myself, whenever I'm making an embryo and I'm breeding a donor, man, I'm trying to narrow down, okay, in this mating, I'm trying to make the grand champion show steer. What does the grand champion show steer have? Well, it has X, Y, and Z. If this mating does not have the ability to create X, Y, and Z, I'm not going to do it, and I'm going to come up with a mating that will. And then you want to set yourself up for success, right? And not only is the mating important, but getting the cow mated and getting a live calf on the ground is absolutely important. So every decision that I make around breeding time is to get the cows settled and get them bred in a timely manner. Then I focus 9 months down the road on getting the calves alive and healthy. And the more calves I have, the more money that I'm going to make.
Right. And so the traits you just brought up of, them having to have a calf is very important. But also, what are some traits that because when we talked about a budget in the last episode, and so what are some traits, because of margin comes from more income and less input, and so what are some traits that create or require less input when they're high quality and
Mm-hmm.
boost your income by being desirable, I guess is what
Yeah,
drives your income.
right. So you're talking about traits in the cattle?
Right, traits in the cattle, yes, sir.
Yeah. So one thing that I do that kind of involves the cattle, but also answers your question is, okay, what breed of cattle do I have? And depending on the time of year, what do they excel in a certain time of year, or do they decrease their performance in a certain time of year? And all cattle in general kind of do similar things, but breed specific cattle do different things at different times of year. So I want to make sure I'm breeding my stuff in a time of year where these cattle perform well and get bred, right? So that's one thing. The second thing is, am I going to have the ability to be labor intensive once they calve, or is my operation, hey, they're on their own, they better do it, okay? Because you may have another job, you may be so spread out that you can't micromanage these cattle, and so udder quality better be outstanding. Uh, our pelvic sizes better be good, our birth weights better be low, um, our calving ease direct better be low. So there's a lot of factors that go into making these cows perform well for you. Outside of just being good cows, help them out with the time of year. That would be my biggest, the thing that's easiest for us to control.
Are you looking for high quality hay that is priced well? Then make sure to visit Threadgill Hay Company. They have fertilized horse jigs and Tifton 85. They carry square bales and round bales. Their square bales are $8 a bale, and their 4x6 round bales are $50 per roll. That's a nice price and good quality. They're located outside of Mount Enterprise, Texas, and they will gladly give you more details when you contact them. Speaking of contacting them, you can reach out by texting Sawyer Pool at 903-646-4741 or Ronald Threadgill at 903-235-2011.
EP Cattle Company. Owned by Eddie Wilson, EP Cattle Company is home of Sir Rouse Handshake. Rouse Handshake is a sound-structured, heavy-muscled bull that is really bold-ribbed. So it comes with no surprise that he is a Fort Worth and San Antonio Junior Show Division Champion and Rio Grande Valley Open Show Division Champion. He is a grandson of BRC Noble and JDH Shank Manso, and is also a great-grandson of Mr. H. Elijah Manso. You can contact Eddie Wilson or Nicole Wilson on Facebook at EP Cattle Company. So remember, if you're looking for some well-performing registered Brahman genetics, contact Eddie Wilson on Facebook.
Right, you talked about birth weight right there, which, in my opinion, birth weight is a risk EPD, basically, of showing how much risk is this gonna cause you of losing the calf, or worse, losing the heifer, because nothing's more expensive than losing a heifer on her first calf. But is there any other traits that are kind of a risk factor of their quality, in terms of what traits do I need to look for to mitigate risk?
Yeah. I think the docility trait is a very profitable trait in for any operation. So for show cattle, it's obvious. If you're gentle, you can sell them. If they're crazy, people aren't going to want to halter break them. In the seed stock operation, you're raising cattle that are going to be around for a long time. And does somebody want to fight every time they go to pin cows? Probably not. Also, whenever you wean that commercial set of calves, and you put them on feed in a feed yard, if they're wired up and a little bit antsy and crazy and claustrophobic, they're probably not going to perform well with feed efficiency. They're probably going to be a little harder cutters and not put on that internal fat like you want them to. So the docile cattle, they get sick less. They're going to be more feed efficient. They're going to get fatter quicker. And so I think that's a trait that we kind of overlooked that's correlated to the dollar pretty closely.
I like that, and I think because we talked about earlier how when you were doing your budget, you have to margin, or you had to budget for 25% extra for, you said, for who knows what. And so I think that mitigating those risk factors may help us save that 25% a little bit that we talked about earlier.
Yes, sir. Here's one more before we get off of this, is foot quality. And foot quality, because once they go in the feed yard and they get started feeding hard, and most cattle will end up in a feed yard at one time in their life, whether you're a cow-calf guy trying to, just like your intro said, feed the world, these cattle are going to be fed so that they can get to their endpoints quick, right? Well, whenever you feed hard, the feet grow. And if they grow cattywampus and then that calf starts hurting, can't get around good, is going to also be lower performing. Also, say you don't care about the feed yard and you just want good cows. Well, your cows and your bulls, we just talked about, we need to get calves on the ground and they need to perform. The number one thing that drops fertility rates in both the cow and the bull, that will drop it overnight, is a foot problem, a foot abscess, a cracked hoof, a foot that's growing funny and they're touching each other and causing pain. Semen quality will drop, bam, overnight in the bull. The cow will miss a cycle. And so now you're getting less calves just because the foot quality in these cows.
It's a killer. And just to recap, so the risk, our risk factors, I guess, what you would talk about, are birth weight. We said birth weight, docility, and foot quality. I think those are all three pretty important traits, and so we'll throw that into the category of mitigating risk. I think that's really important. Now, I wanna go back to what you talked about earlier of breeding for your purpose. You talked about defining your operation and having your operation be ready for what you're trying to sell. If you're in a scenario where you maybe are not sure on what your purpose is, how do you find what might be best for you to niche down on? And also, how do you be prepared, which going into diversifying incomes, for cattle that may be branching off from that key niche that you have?
Sure. Well, I think in defining it, one, you have to look at what you have and be honest with the evaluation of what you have, and then know, okay, am I going to work with what I have, or am I going to buy something that I want? And if you're going to buy something that you want, then make sure that it fits and you know exactly what it's going to do. If you're going to work with what you have, then, and maybe you're not to where you want to be, then you need to just create a plan to get there. But I think people being honest with themselves and knowing exactly what they have. I mean, if I got a set of jerseys, I ain't going to be trying to raise show steers, right? But I could probably sell some milk on the side. So know what you have and cater to it.
Right. Okay, well, I think we can go ahead and move into diversifying incomes. In case people don't know what that means, can you kind of say what that is real quick?
Yeah, so just real quickly, if I have a cow-calf operation, my main income is going to be selling that calf, right?
Right.
And that's the fun part. And that's where our mind's always at. And that's what all we think about. And we talked earlier about that budgeting and what all are we going to account for with our cattle business? What all does it need to pay for? If it has to pay a land payment, a truck payment, a house payment, all the insurances, all the taxes, plus all the hay, all the feed, all the medicine, all the fencing, all the tractors, all, if it has to pay for everything, then I'm putting a whole lot of pressure on that calf and on that cow and having to make it work. And that's when people get frustrated and say, this is impossible. I don't know how
Right.
people do it. You can't make money in the cattle business, right?
Right.
You hear that all the time, and it's very true. If you don't do it right, it'll eat you up.
But you can't make money in any business if you don't do it right.
Amen. Amen. So if we want to make this thing work and our business model, what successful business models out there sell all their revenue one time a year? Hardly any of them, none of them, right?
Seafood restaurants in the summer.
Yeah, right. So we have to figure out how to get cash flow at other times a year. And there's a lot of different ways we can do it. And that's what I get enamored with myself, is because I need to figure out ways to make that work so I can make this thing work, because I love it and I need it to be successful. And everybody will have something different that works for them. That's the beauty of ingenuity, and that's the beauty of land. Whenever you're working the land and you're a steward of the land gives you so much. And so all of us will have different unique opportunities based on where we're at, the type of land that we have, and what it has to offer.
If you truly want your livestock to perform at their best, make sure to contact Vance Aaron, the owner and operator of AFL Livestock Solutions. Vance specializes in magnawave treatments that use pulsed electromagnetic fields, or PEMF, to relieve pain, swelling, and inflammation, caused to help your livestock feel their best. In addition to livestock, Vance can also help you feel better. His treatment works great on sore muscles and joints, along with other mobility issues. His treatments are FDA approved to treat migraines. Aaron Family Livestock Solutions has helped many exhibitors make it to the backdrop with their proven MagnaWave treatments. Don't miss your next backdrop picture. Give Vance a call at 903-720-3184. Again, that's 903-720-3184. Or find them on Facebook at AFL Livestock Solutions. Have you been looking for Brahman cattle with a good genetic background? Contact 79 Cattle Company, selling reliable Brahman replacement heifers, Brahman show prospects, and Brahman bulls. Contact Taylor Tate at 210-241-4511. Again, that's 210-241-4511. Or contact Mallory Tate at 210-861-0155. 210-861-0155. Right, and so diversifying incomes, we understand what it is now, which is just having an income throughout the year, because like you said, one point, and I was joking about the seafood restaurant, obviously they're still selling food throughout the year. And so, like you said, you have to have income throughout the year to be able to sustain yourself. And so I think that is very important. What are some ways that you find that helps you diversify your income? And then what are some other ways that other ranchers can diversify their income in terms of just the opportunities?
Yep. So I'll just spitfire just a few that as they come to my mind. I mentioned that I built my brand before I built my business. Well, with a brand, you can sell merchandise. I can sell caps. I can sell hoodies. I can sell cups with my logo on it, right? And It may not be a lot, may not be big, but that can add up. I raise show steers, and if I own the bull that is creating these winners, then he gets popular. I can do semen sales. That's a income. I've flushing these cows and use embryo transfer. Well, what if I sell some embryos that are just sitting in the tank that haven't been put in yet? So, all right, now I got 3. I'm calving in September, October, November. I'm breeding cows back in November, December, January. That means that I'm pretty busy during hunting season. What if I leased out my land for hunting? That's a source of income.
We may need to put your contacts in the description just in case anybody's interested in that.
Yeah, yeah, I see them eyebrows raise up. I had a beautiful big oak tree get struck by lightning and fall down. What am I going to do with it? Well, I could get a chainsaw, chop it up, put it in cords, and I can sell it. There's a company coming to town. It's a new company. They're building some big old fancy building, and they have to do a lot of dirt work to get a pad that's level and fits all the specs that the city's putting on them. And where are they going to get this dirt from? Well, I got an ugly old hill that I'd got to get flattened out, or I need a new tank. And I could say, hey, y'all come, y'all can dig a tank right here, get all the dirt you want, make it as big and beautiful as you want, big old hole, take that dirt out there. They pay me to do it, and I get me a tank.
Pond, but I'm just kidding.
Yeah, East Texas. Uh-huh.
Well, so what I'm seeing here is you said merch, semen, embryos, hunting, and then you said fallen trees and dirt, which I'll lump that into a category together and just say random things that you can find whenever when it pops up, and so always looking for those opportunities. And I think that's pretty cool. And another thing I noticed about that is so you have your main source of income, which is selling your cattle, which is it's a higher price point. So I mean, cattle are not a cheap thing to buy. And then you have embryos and semen, and that's kind of they're still expensive, and embryos are typically a little bit more expensive than semen, but you kind of have more of a medium price there. And then you have your merch, which is nowhere near as expensive as the rest of those things. And if you ask a bunch of these business influencers or business leaders, whatever you want to call them, a lot of them say building a business model around having high price, medium price, and low price products is a smart thing to do. And so I think that is a pretty cool idea of having multiple levels of income where you can serve different levels of customers as well. And one of my favorite things in the world is to sell semen, because it's easy to release and it's easy to do the customer work with the customer. And so I think you talked about wanting, our minds are always on selling the cattle, but I think it can be just as fun to sell the frozen genetics as well.
Absolutely.
Another one I want to add to our list here is pictures. My mom loves to have people come out and take pictures at our place, and that's one that you can, if you set up a picture backdrop, you can earn some income as well.
Absolutely.
All right, well, we can keep going. So you talked about random opportunities that popped up. What are some ways relating to random opportunities, but also not random opportunities that can be stable, diversified incomes? What are some ways that, even though I may not have this opportunity and you may not have this opportunity, somebody else at their operation can keep an open eye and find opportunities for to diversify their income and another income line on the budget?
Yeah. I would say too, there's opportunities within your cow herd that you're not utilizing. Okay, so what do I mean by that? If my main calf crop is a set of embryo calves, okay, well, do I just sell the ones that don't take an embryo? I could. I could sell those cows, but if I want to put in the same number of embryos next year, I'll have to buy more. So
Right.
that's not really making money. But if I put a bull on them and they got bred and they had a commercial calf, then I have something that's different, right? And since it's different, I don't have to manage it like I manage my show calves, and I don't have to sell them when I sell my show calves. That means, let's say these calves are born in August, and my steer sale is going to be March 1st, and end of January, snow's coming and it's getting cold and I'm low on hay and I'm going to have to buy 30 more rolls because it's going to get bad. Well, hey, I can go sell 10 commercial calves real quick, just pull them off the cow, send them to town, get a little cash flow, right? And
Right.
so I have an opportunity there. Or I leave them on the cow and it's now May and they probably need to be weaned anyway. And I want to surprise my wife and go on a trip to Hawaii.
Ooh.
Send a few of the commercial calves to the sale barn, and boom, I got a couple thousand to take her on a trip to Hawaii. Because why? Since that wasn't my main income, they weren't even accounted in my budget, but their expenses were already accounted for. So now I have that luxury to be able to do that.
So random, because you have, um, you could even call it kind of a hidden asset because it's there ready to sell whenever you need to have some cash on hand or liquidate it, whatever you want to say,
Yeah,
and it's there ready for whenever you need it. That's a pretty
absolutely.
cool idea that I think you brought up there. Well, so we always ask this question for everybody we interview, and that is what is your advice to ranchers to help them innovate their herd to turn a profit?
Um, One, discover your break even, because how do you know if you're turning a profit if you don't know your break even? Define what your operation is, then spend every ounce of energy you got on being the best at it. If you know what your operation is and you're the best at it, then I guarantee you're going to sell at the top of the market, whatever market it is, whether it's commercial, stocker, feeder, seed stock, selling replacement heifers, selling show bulls. If you know what you are and you're the best at it, you're going to sell at the top of the market.
Have you been looking for a place to buy top quality AI sire semen or collect a bull of your own? Well, look no further than Elgin Breeding Services. Located in Elgin, Texas, Elgin Breeding Service is not only one of the best breeding services in the business, but also has superior customer service. Contact them at ebsbull@elginbreedingservices.com or by phone at 512-285-2019. Again, that's 512-285-2019. And visit their website at elginbreedingservice.com. I like that. So we forgot to do our pro tip session on the last episode, so we're going to go ahead and do that this episode, and we'll have 2 questions since we have to catch up. So the first one is, what is your pro tip for negotiating an honest deal with a customer?
Well, my pro tip is every deal is an honest deal with the customer.
I like it.
So don't ever, if you have to not be honest, a deal ain't worth doing.
That's right. All right. Well, our next one is, what is your pro tip for getting in a money mindset in a cattle operation? And you talk about that in your Cattle Coach Academy, which I highly recommend for people to do. But what's your pro tip for getting in a money mindset in your cattle operation?
Get you a good wife that whips you into shape.
Well, some of us aren't old enough for that yet. So what's your advice to the rest of us?
Yeah, the pro tip is if you truly love this thing and this is what you want to do, then you dadgum better do it right and make money, or else you ain't going to be able to do it for very long. So if you want to have an impact in our cattle industry, in our world, if you want to feed the world on less land, and which is the absolute truth, then you need to be successful at it. You have to be, or someone has to be, and it might as well be you.
Right, I talked about this earlier. We have to feed more people on less land, and we're not going to be able to do that by having, it's great for people, a bunch of people to be able to raise cattle, but it's only 2% feed the world, and think how many of that is cattle producers. And so I think we have to be profitable, and because a side hobby is something you typically focus all your energy on, but something that's profitable, now that's something you can focus a lot of energy on. And so I think that is the key to being able to feed more people on less land.
And do you want to be better or stay the same?
Personally, I want to be better.
Okay. Well, if you're profitable, then you can grow. If you're breaking even, you're staying the same. And if you're not profitable, you're getting worse. And you're getting out of business. So you really got 3 options, and there's only one good one.
That's right. Well, thank you for joining us this episode, and we'll be back with another one. Thank you so much for sticking around this long and watching this Thank you so much for watching this episode to the end. If you enjoyed this episode, you'll also enjoy our first episode with Mr. Colton Thigpen about budgeting in your cattle operation. It is a crucial piece of making a profitable cattle operation. So make sure to go check that episode out. If you like this episode, make sure to share it and like it if you're watching on YouTube. And until next time, keep innovating the cattle industry. Signing off. Thank you so much for watching to the end of this episode. If you enjoyed this episode, you'll also like our first episode with Mr. Colton Thigpen about budgeting, because budgeting is such a crucial part of making your cattle operation profitable. So make sure to go check that episode out. Also, if you like this episode, please make sure to like it if you're watching on YouTube and share it with your friends so they can learn more also. Until next time, keep innovating the cattle industry. Signing off.